Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Episode, I believe, 7, two mics and one bond. Today we have an awesome guest. We're just honored to be able to spend some time with. Andre, how you doing today, sir?
Good man, how you doing today?
I am doing okay, my friend. I'm doing okay. I'm always excited for Tuesdays, no matter how my week is going. I'm excited. I don't know if you know much about the premise, but my co-host Kenny and I came up with an idea of rather than trying to figure out who our speakers are going to be, we decided to kind of give that responsibility to whoever we interview. And so we started out with a friend of ours, local friend of mine, that started a company which he does poop scooping, right? And it's
Oh,
like,
okay.
it is a niche, small niche, but very, very, very thriving in our community. Like just high need for it. You never think that, right?
No.
And then, so then from there, we got to connect with a comic book writer. I think Andre Wilkins. I think you know him, Adrian
Yeah.
Wilkins.
Oh, yeah, me, Adrian, and TJ like all go like way back.
Okay,
So
okay,
yeah,
okay.
we
So
all
you're
know each
the
other.
trifecta. So you're the
Yeah.
trifecta. Okay. So the his name is Donovan's the poop scooper. He's the one that got us connected to Adrian. So Adrian got us
Uh,
connected to to Thomas, and Thomas, I guess, got us connected to you. So this is okay, trifecta, quadruple factor. Okay, so
yeah.
well, we're very excited to be able to have you, and so man, I guess maybe just to give us a little story about kind of your upbringing. What was that like?
Yeah. So my upbringing was it was pretty cool, a little odd. I most of my life was spent in sports. So I actually grew up in Nevada. So my dad was in the military, so seeing him leave a lot was that was just kind of the name of the game. So it was typically, me and my mom, and so she was kind of like the number one fan at the games until the ones my dad could show up to. But so it was pretty much like I said, me and her, and sports was kind of just my angle in life. And pursued it to a college and professional level, and now I currently live in Virginia. Was a firefighter for 10 years. Actually, just
Yep.
left that to become a full time filmmaker, and so now I'm here in this new chapter of my life, ready to make something happen.
Man, I can already tell that's like 7 interviews we can have, and so we'll. That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of stuff. So you said just kind of in your upbringing, your father. I mean, you said he was in the military, right? And so
Mhm. Yeah,
first of all, thank you for his service. That's an incredible gift to our country. But I know one of the things that comes with that sometimes we forget as everyday citizens is the kind of toll that it could take on family. Right.
right.
And so
Yeah. Oh yeah.
what was that like for you as far as like in your upbringing? I know you said that your mom was the one that kind of shut up to a lot, but was there some tension there for you or were you pretty
Oh
understanding?
yeah, 100%. There was a lot of tension because it felt like the rest of the world got my dad, and then I was kind of given what was left over. So there was a lot of animosity towards other people who would get what I considered his full time, and so um and I don't want to say it was a motivator, but it was especially in sports, was to just make sure that, hey, if all these people are getting his time, like I need to make sure that I'm doing everything I need to do to do whatever it was I had my mind set on, and at the time that was sports. So sports was really my outlet to not focus so much on uh the lack of time I got to spend with him. And so sports was pretty much just like I said, that thing that got me through. And obviously, my mom kind of pushing me through and reassuring me that even though that time wasn't there, that it wasn't on purpose,
Yeah.
and to do my best to forgive and to let go and focus on the things that would help me make my own future.
So what was the sports that you connected with early that you're like, okay, I'm pretty good at this?
Uh so early, and this is actually funny. And my mom, every time I do an interview, she wants me to say it because
Okay.
she says I
Let's
was
make
right
mom
on this.
happy. Yeah, let's make
exactly.
mom happy. Yeah.
So early on, I was a baseball player and I was a pitcher. And so the unique thing about it was I could throw with my right hand, but I could also throw with my left hand.
Oh, you're
And
dangerous.
yeah, so I was from a very early age. I was in like camps in California. Like we would just travel everywhere for these camps. And I had people interested in me at a
Yeah.
very young age. And so I was playing baseball, basketball, and football. And so as I got older, I started to realize it's coming to a point where you're going to have to figure out what you want to do instead
So
of
fork in
splitting
the
your
road kind
time.
of thing. Yeah.
And so I gravitated towards football. So I dropped basketball, dropped baseball. And my mom told me, she said, I really think you should just stick with baseball instead of football. And I told her, I said, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm good at. I'm going to go do football. People like football more. I'm not going to do it. And, and I couldn't see the writing on the wall, but I was getting offers at
Oh
that young
man.
age as well.
Oh man.
And I just think about it now that the road would have been so much easier. And from time to time, my mom will actually send me like news articles of, hey, this pitcher just got paid $180 million or this
Yeah.
pitcher. So
That baseball contract is insane.
it's nuts. It is
It's
nuts,
insane.
and they play for so long and the body doesn't get beat up as bad. And so now I look at it, I'm like,
Wow.
yeah, I probably made the wrong choice. I'm happy I made it, but if I could go back, I would definitely do baseball instead.
You as soon as you told me, I think it's called ambidextric, right? When you can do
Yeah.
both. Yeah.
Mhm.
Did you ever face a batter that was also ambidextric? So you guys are just battling out like a lefty.
No,
That
I
would be interesting,
never,
wouldn't it?
I never actually, you know what? No, I take that back. I take that
Okay.
back. Uh, Not necessarily pitching to this guy, but I went up to bat and this guy also could do the
Oh
same
man.
thing.
Yeah.
And he was a little bit better. And so he actually ended up getting the last laugh, and struck me out a couple times. It was really bad game. But, yeah, that was the only time. But other than that, as far as when I was pitching, never ran into it.
Yep. 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 I For me, I don't know what it is about sports. I feel like left-handed athletes are the most exciting. Like I think it's just because you just see right-handed athletes all the time.
Yes, I think so. It's a right-handed world. So when you see it,
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's odd. It's different because the form looks different. So there definitely is something to it.
And then I mean the value of a pitcher that can pitch both hands. I mean that's especially in the pro level. That's insane.
Right.
So what
Right.
was your? I know you said you were a pitcher. So what was your? What were some of your confident pitches? Like what are the ones that you're like, hey, this is the one that I'm gonna strike somebody out. This is it.
Honestly, at that age, because I didn't play in high school. I went up to like middle school.
Okay.
So it was like literally my thing was just fastball. That was it. That's all I
Yeah.
wanted to be able to do.
Yeah.
I tried a curveball and yeah, it was hit or miss. Sometimes it could get there, sometimes it couldn't. But I really just relied on a fastball and tried to perfect it. And I feel like I did pretty good. Um, and I tried working on the slider and yeah, so the fastball was probably the thing that
What
I
you go
was
to?
just like, no, I want to do this. Because it's cool when you see somebody throw 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
That was exciting to me. So I was like, man, if I could do that or I could go above 100, that'd be a huge accomplishment for me. So
Have you ever seen those videos of like MLB pitchers? I was like, they're throwing 95, 98, 100, and then out of nowhere they throw like a 60-mile-per-hour changeup. It just be
nuts. It's nuts to me. It's so crazy.
yeah, yeah. I just joined a softball team here, and so it's like,
Okay.
and so it's just like it's all underhand. Like there's
Yeah.
something about baseball that you just in softball is like actually at the batter's box and watching it. It's different, man. You think you're gonna hit a home run every time, and it's
Every
like
time. Yeah.
there's a reason. Yeah. So, um, but yeah. So what? Okay. So baseball kind of got off that, right? Obviously,
Mhm.
financially, that would have definitely been a better direction to go.
Definitely been a better
But
direction.
so what? How did football pull you in?
Um, I think football pulled me in because naturally I was just gifted at it. So I didn't have to work hard. And I think at that age it was just like, well, I don't really have to work that hard and it's easy for me. Basketball, like I say, it was a little bit more difficult for me, but still came pretty natural. But yeah, football, it was just like there was just a comfortability there that I was like, oh, this is the no brainer. It's going to be an easy road from here to get where I want to go. But that was definitely was not the case. So,
What was the position that you played?
so funny enough, in high school, I was a defensive end, and I only weighed like 160 pounds.
Yeah,
And
it's
and
impressive.
I don't know how it just again it just came really easy to me, and it wasn't until like I said my senior year where colleges came in and talked to me, and they were like the guy we saw on film, and I was like, no, that was me. Like I'm 160,
Yeah.
and so everyone, hey, if you can gain 20, 30, 40 pounds,
70
you
pounds, yeah,
know,
yeah.
so and again that was something obviously I just could not do. And so it became a conversation with me and my dad. And he said, look, if this is really what you want to do, you got to teach yourself to play a position that's for your size. And so the whole summer was spent learning how to play safety and cornerback. So that's what I did the whole summer. And unfortunately, I had to end up going to a junior college to kind of test this experiment of if I could really play safety or not. And ended up working out, so yeah. So like I said, that my first year of college was actually my first time ever playing safety, defensive back.
I've heard, so I listen to a lot of different athletes talk on, and one of the topics I know a lot of football players like to have is what's the most difficult position. And right, wide receivers would say it's their position, right? And then you have DBs, corners,
Yeah.
also positions. From your perspective, do you think that your position is more difficult than a receiver's position, or what do you think?
100%.
100%.
100%. There's
What
just
would be
something
your
about having
case?
to backpedal. It's
Yep.
easy to run at somebody, but to have to backpedal, be able to stop and then react. Like I think it is so difficult and it requires so much technique. And not that receivers don't require technique, but they're all divas, and so I just think there's just a different level to being a defensive back. But I would say as far as the hardest position on the field, I think it's absolutely the quarterback. I think the
Yeah.
quarterback is so there's so many details. You got to know everything. You got to know the offense and the defense, and you got to be able to look for things. So there's so many things going on in your head, and you only have a split second to figure it out. But yeah. But as far as DBs and wide receivers, there's no question.
What's interesting, because one of the things that the advantage of receivers has is that they get to create
They get
where
to
they're
create.
going, right? And so
Right.
you're going against somebody that has no idea they can have an idea what's happening, but at the end
Right.
of the day, it's I have to go wherever you're choosing to go. So you're kind of controlling.
Exactly.
And you get like no help back there.
No, there's
That's
times now. I mean, again, now that's the issue with safety is like you're the last line of defense.
Mhm.
So if something bad happens, that's it. As opposed to
Yeah.
like even a cornerback, I'll say the cornerback is very difficult, but sometimes the joy is at least hey, I have a safety back there who, God forbid, if something bad happens, I got help. But yeah, being the last line of defense, it's nerve wracking because again, split second to make a choice and not make a mistake.
Growing up, we used to play a lot of Madden, and
Mm-hmm.
I used to hate playing DBs, midline, or backers and quarterbacks in video games like sport. I used to have a close friend of mine. I mean, we're still close, but like, doesn't matter what formation I picked. He knew exactly what plays were.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. It was for some reason it was the safety players, it was the
Mm-hmm.
backers, and it was the quarterbacks. And it's like
Oh yeah.
any other position, I was doing okay, but it's like as
Right.
soon as I play them, it was annoying. Like it's annoying when someone knows exactly what you're doing.
It is. It is. Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah, there have been some major Madden battles, especially in college. So,
Oh, dude, they just brought back NCAA, no?
Yeah. Last year
Yep,
they
that's
just
what I
brought it
thought.
out. Yeah.
So one of the things I've always been fascinated is so two questions, I guess. Part one would be what kind of person were you going into football, and what kind of person came out of football? Like, what are things that you learned in football? Go like, it's like because there's it's almost like a machine that you go into this thing,
Everything. Yeah.
and then you experience this world for a while, and you come out of it.
Right.
What was Andre like going
Um,
into it?
yeah. That's actually a really great question. Because going into college, um, I was very egotistical because at
Mm,
that point I had checked off the first box, going to college and playing football, getting a scholarship. And I was very absent-minded to the rest of the world. And it was pretty much football was my only focus, my only love. And if I had time for someone else outside of that, you got a little bit of time. And it's interesting because it reminded me kind of like, how I felt with my dad. And that's kind of how I
mm-hmm.
treated the rest of the world was if you're not football or anything to do with football, you don't matter. And when football season is over, we can talk, do whatever. So going into it, I absolutely was very, very self-centered. Um, and it wasn't until um, I had a significant ankle injury in literally the beginning of the season once I transferred, and it changed my whole life. Uh,
Where did you play, by
people,
the way, real quick? What
uh,
school? What school did you?
University of St. Mary.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, and so people at home stopped calling. I would call them, and they'd be like, "Yeah, man, I really don't got time for you," and some of them were very honest and blunt with me. Hey, man, you ain't going to the league, man. Like, just sorry. Like we
Wow.
there's just nothing here now. So it sent me into a deep state of depression because just I'd lost everything at that point. And and I remember my mom called and I was telling her, I was like, I don't know what to do. The doctor is telling me that I'm gonna walk with a limp, for the rest of my life. And I don't know if I'm gonna be able to come back and play football ever again. And she was so calm, and she said, sometimes uh we have to be humble, and sometimes God will sit you on your back, so you have to talk to him. and
Well, yeah.
uh and so that night, all I remember is I didn't even know what I was doing. I prayed and was like, please, like, if there's any way for this to happen,
Mm.
like I will change. And a couple months later, two surgeries later, I end up in the hospital, and the doctor comes in, and he's looking at my x-rays, and he immediately runs out of the room. And then nurses are coming in, they're leaving, everybody's coming in, leaving. And I'm thinking like I'm getting my foot amputated,
Yeah,
and they don't
yeah,
know how to tell.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm freaking out. And I remember the doctor comes in, and the rest of the staff come in, and he says, I'm looking over your x-rays, and it's like your ankle was never broke.
Oh,
And he shows me the x-ray, and sure enough, you cannot tell there was a break.
oh,
And he says, I've never seen this before, but I would say you have a couple more weeks, and I think you're gonna play again. I think you're gonna be okay.
whoa.
And so I remember my roommate, I told him, I said, hey man, like, I need to see if this is real. I'm gonna go outside and I'm gonna go run. And he was like, man, I don't think you should. I said, no. I said, I need to prove to myself. I said,
Was this
like, think about everything.
is this
Yeah, this
after
this
you
is
waited
like
for a
two or
period?
two weeks after that
Oh, okay,
appointment.
okay. I thought you were talking about like the
Oh,
next
not
day.
that day.
Okay.
No, no, no,
Yeah,
no. This
yeah,
is like 2 weeks
yeah,
later.
yeah, yeah.
And I said, look, if it breaks, I said, then this just wasn't for me. And he says, all right, man, I'll be out there with you. And like, if something happens, we'll figure it out. So I ran and I ran and I ran. I probably ran for about an hour
Oh,
and sprinting. And
yeah.
I said, man, I think this is gonna work out. And so I talked to my coach. I said, hey, I'm gonna be back next season. And sure enough, I came back next season, and not only did I come back, I actually ended up running faster than
Wow.
I originally did.
Wow.
And so, man, I came out of it thinking that one, not necessarily being so self-centered, but also it gave me a chance to see that I had to I had to be more than just a football player, because that's what the people around me, or the people I surrounded myself with, that's what they saw me as and nothing else. And so I changed my circle of friends, uh, bought into, putting other people before myself. And as a result, like I said, I was a completely different person. So I definitely wasn't the same as when I went in. And I think I truly came out, like I said, better.
Mm. That's those miracle stories, like, is that's a beautiful thing, man. Like, and for you to bounce back in a way that's better than you were prior, right? It's in some ways it doesn't make sense because, like,
Right.
when it comes to footballs, right? It's like there's something about aggression,
Yeah.
frustration that can sometimes fuel,
Right.
right? But then you also have, I mean, because so one of my favorite people, athletic wise, was Ray Lewis, right? And he talks
Oh
about
yeah. Oh yeah.
how his father used to be towards his mom, right? And so
Right.
he
Hmm.
started getting a deck of cards, and that's how you did push
And
ups
that's how,
with
yeah.
those cards. But and so that aggression and stuff eventually got him to be the kind of person he is. But for you, it sounded like your aggression actually broke you. Like eventually it just
Yeah.
broke you. Like your ego broke you. And then somehow peace and a gift from God heals you, right? And now
Yep.
you're operating better than you've ever operated.
Oh,
Uh,
100%. 100%.
so walk me through. So I see how personally from an ego, I know you talk about from an ego perspective, that part of you
Yeah.
got established. What was that like in regards to your father as well? Like, did that? How was that relationship? Did that relationship also recover from?
Not at first. It actually soured significantly bad.
Okay.
Um, to the point of, like, again, just being a dumb college student, I was like, because we have the same name actually, so I was like, I'm changing my name. Like,
Yeah.
I want no connection to you, nothing. And so it got to a pretty bad point, and it took my new circle of friends telling me, like, hey, like, you got to be a better person here, and you got to lean on the fact that, show love to get love. And all these old tendencies that you have, like, they're not serving you. And so it just took me to say, you know what, even if the relationship wasn't where I wanted it to be, and I didn't know if it would ever get to where I needed it to be, I was just going to forgive and let go. And I was going to love him as much as possible, and not let something push me away. And like I said, and over time, like I said, it's gotten better. So yeah, just like I said, letting that go, and not letting that sit inside me and eat away at me.
I think one of the beautiful things about kind of what you're expressing, I mean, there's a lot of good things in it, but I think one of the things that I personally admire is your ability to recognize that your circle of influence, like that, I can't imagine what it's like being thriving as much as you are, thinking all these people are behind you and supporting you. And then when you're at your lowest, you look back and you're like, no one's there to be found, right? Always, mom's always there.
Oh
The
yeah,
mom's always going to be, it don't matter.
right,
There's a comedian that's talking about like you could do the most horrific things, right? And the police knock at the door and the mom's gonna be like, nah, he ain't here.
right,
I don't know where he's at, you know what I'm saying?
right,
So
right.
mom's always gonna be there. Uh but that turning around and looking back and realizing that the people that you counted on, the people you thought were gonna be there, the people you invested in, they've been riding your wave,
Mhm.
right, are no longer there. What was that? What was what was the building of trust like from there to opening up a new circle of influence? And how did you even come across this new?
Yeah. Um, it was hard. I didn't trust anybody, because I
Yeah.
felt everybody was only there for one reason. And So I would ruin a lot of relationships still, even being at peace with everything and being this more peaceful person, I would ruin a
Like
lot of relationships.
self-sabotaging?
Self-sabotage, 100%. Because I would just look at people and say, nah, and they might have had the best intentions. Or I would just jump to a conclusion and say, no, I think you're wrong, or I think you're only here for something. So I really hurt a lot of relationships early on. And, and I think what changed it was, my girlfriend at the time, who actually I ended up marrying and becoming my wife.
Yeah. Come
I
on.
asked her, I said, I now that everything's good, I think I'm going to be a pro baller now. And she looked at me and she said, I didn't date the football player. I dated you.
Oh, hey,
And I was like, I didn't know what to say. I was speechless. Cause everybody else was like, Andre, the football player, like that's my dude right there. And she was like, I could care less about the football player. Like, he does nothing for me. If you turn pro, congrats, but like, it means nothing to me.
what did that do to you?
Oh, well, first it crushed my ego a little bit, and I was like, oh yeah, I've never
Yeah.
heard that before, but then I was like, oh, I'm gonna be with this girl for the rest of my life. Like, nobody is that honest and truthful with you. People will tell you what you want to hear. And that was the thing I loved about her. She was very honest and blunt, and nobody would do that with me. And like I said, and from that point, I started looking at people differently. And the people who, were honest and blunt with me, those are the people who I kept around. And, everybody always says, oh, your friends, they're the ones that'll lift you up, and they'll pull you through. Your friends are the ones who tell you how it is. If you're messing up, they'll let you know, hey, you're messing up and you need to get your act right. Those are your friends. And that's how I lived my life after that. I said, I would go to people, and people who would, help me out, or they would tell me something, to help me get better. Those were the only people I gravitated towards. And anybody else who was self first or told me what I wanted to hear, those were the people that, I unfortunately had to push out of my life.
Yeah. What a gift of that statement, right? Because, first thing that popped in my head was, I wonder if this is the first time you felt seen in a while. Like when someone tells you, like, I didn't date the athlete, I didn't date the football players, like, right? Because all of that is just it's a shell, right?
It
It's
is.
just, and somebody just cuts through all of that
He
and says,
cuts through all of it because that was the thing. I didn't feel seen by my dad. I didn't feel seen, like all these people. So like the football player was like that alter ego, the person who was loved, the person who was, cheered for, all this stuff. And so when somebody finally cut through that, I was like, oh, okay. So it all made sense.
yep, yep, yep. So, so in that moment, you tell her that, hey, I want to go do this. She responds in a way that's kind of catches you off guard for the better.
Hmm.
Um, so did you end up going pro?
I did. I did. And she supported me 100%. And, so I went to Las Vegas Pro Day, where I got to try out for the Raiders, the Rams, the Bills.
That's the
And,
one team I can't stand right there.
yeah, I know.
The Raiders.
Oh,
Yeah.
uh,
I'm a Broncos guy. I'm a Denver Broncos
oh,
guy.
you're a Denver guy? Oh man,
Uh,
yeah, Denver was not there. And I had a great showing.
yeah.
And I actually ran my fastest 40, and everything was just perfect, and so I got a lot of attention from the Raiders, at that pro day. And the unfortunate thing for me was, my school was not a bigger school. My school was a smaller school, and a lot of the guys there, had a bit more form technique down, and had just unfortunately played against better competitions,
Yep.
than I had gotten to play against. And, the coach came up to me and he said, hey, I really like what I see, but I think, I think you need to, a little bit more work. And, and so arena football was the first thing that came to mind, as well as the CFL. So I tried out for the CFL, and I didn't make that. And so arena football is kind of where I set in.
Yep.
So I played there, had a great year. And after that, I actually ended up firing my agent after that. And my wife became like my agent. She was like emailing teams, putting letters together, putting all my highlight tapes on CD. Like, I mean, she was going nuts. And,
Don't
it
expose
just,
your age like that, man. On my
oh,
CDs.
yeah. No, my agent, he lost a very big opportunity for me.
Really?
And again, it was one of those, I was at the bottom of his list. There were guys that were far bigger than me. And so it was kind of like, hey, if I have time for you or it's convenient, I'll help you out. And I missed a great opportunity, and and so I just said, I got to figure something out. I don't want to necessarily get another agent and go through the process again of them getting to know me. And
Was
so
this
she
like
said,
the
no,
on ramp to the next level? Kind of like lost that kind of
yeah.
opportunity? Oh wow.
Mhm. And, and so she said, well, hey, I got you, we'll figure this out. And she said, my only rule is that you cannot get back to outdoor football. We got to stop this. And she said, it's too much with indoors, and there's a lot more injuries, and there's all these things. And my son had just been born. So she was like,
Wow.
it's just a lot. And what people don't realize, arena football, there's just so much that goes into it, that it can, again, take a toll on your family, as opposed to like, the NFL, where it's significant better.
Yep.
It's a better
Yeah.
situation. You're taking care of it a little bit more. And so, so I was like, okay, that's the deal. If I cannot get back outdoors, I'll give it up. And like I said, unfortunately, the only offers that I ended up getting were arena teams. I got a whole bunch of arena teams. Didn't get any NFL teams. Didn't get any CFL teams. And so I played, my year and a half and hung it up. So
What is you're living a life that you lived a life that, I mean, 99.9% of the world will never experience, right? And so, what is it like having an agent? What is it like having people pursue you in that, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's, I will
yeah,
never have an agent in my life. What is that like when you first get an agent representing you? What does that do for you? And then what does trust look like with your agent? Because I know there's a lot of dialogues that they have.
yeah. So it's exciting. I mean, you're on cloud nine that, you are represented. Somebody wants to represent you and push your career forward. And so you really only think about like the future. You're just like, oh man, I'm gonna play for this team. And I think I'm gonna play this many years. So you just, you get this narrative in your head, and you just, for me at least, it made me, unfortunately, let my wall completely down. And I put a whole bunch of trust and was like, oh man, he's going to take care of me, and I don't got to worry about it. I just got to play.
When you say walls down, do you mean like at one point you had your, you had the
Oh,
injury,
yeah, my
you had the
walls were
people,
up.
I
Yeah.
don't trust people, and so then suddenly you went back to trusting
I
people, kind
went
of thing?
back to trusting because, again, this
Right.
person's like, hey, I want you. And then you see the contract, and then, they're like, hey, this is the plan I have for your career. And you're just like, yeah, it all sounds great. So,
Yeah.
so I just was like, cool, you do your thing, and I'm gonna do what I got to do. And I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't watching. I didn't look for signs or anything like that or any red flags. And it bit me in the ass, and when it came down to it, there was a situation, an opportunity that I could have been paying attention to, and I didn't. And at that point, there was nothing I could do except the fact that it was a missed opportunity, and I had to deal with it the best way I could, So no, it's great. And again, if you get a great agent, I'm not gonna say all of them are bad, majority are, but but if you get a good agent, I think it could be a significantly great experience and a great bond and just knowing that somebody is taking care of the things that you don't want to take care of. And you know that it's all gonna be okay. You wake up in the morning, stuff's taken care of. But hey, live and you learn. It just, again, put me in a position where I was like, okay, if this happens again, and at some point I get some agent for something, there's going to be a lot more questions asked. I'm going to involve my family a little bit more. And, I'm not going to trust until they give me a reason to trust.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the challenging things that I've seen in the sports world is, so I'm one of those people that I'm like 99.9% of the time when I hear something between a player and organization, I always take the side of a player. Like 99.9% of the time, I'm on the side of the player. Somebody's like, this person doesn't deserve this contract. I'm like, I hope he gets that and more. Like whatever the individual can grab, I'm on their side. Because like you see stories of like Isaiah Thomas, right, where he was having an MVP year with the Boston Celtics, right, just playing out of his mind. And he gets injured, right, and they pretty much screw him over. And everybody was like, yeah, it's just business. It is what it is. LeBron does 7 years, fulfills his contract to Cleveland, leaves. This is selfish. How could you do this? It's like, so there's like no way to win. But when I hear stories, even like kind of like what you're communicating, and anybody that listens to what you're saying right now, you could tell there was a lot of pain that you went through just in that experience, right? Like, part of me wants to ask, do you feel like you have found freedom and kind of moved forward from that experience that you had, or are you still, it's okay if you're still wrestling with it, but do you feel like that's still something?
I have, it was just unfortunate. Like at the time, like I felt like that was my purpose. And so I put all my chips in. I said, this is it. Like, there is nothing else, maybe when
God
I
didn't heal
retired,
me
but
not to take me through this path.
right.
But,
So, and that was the thing. I was like, God healed my ankle. He did all this stuff. I know this is where I'm supposed to be, and no, and and it was only, I was only meant to play for a certain amount of time, and whatever that time it served its purpose, and I learned the lessons that I learned, and then I take them, to the next thing. And it was tough after that. Obviously I told my wife, I'm gonna I'll hang it up. It didn't, in my head, it did not go so well. Because even after that, I would go to jobs and I was just miserable. Because nobody's taking care of me, nobody's, there's no trainers, there's no people just, seeing what you need. There was none of that. And trying to fit into the world after that, it was difficult for me, and I didn't want to do a regular job because I was like, well, I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm not doing that. And so it was hard for a long time. And I think it probably took me 2 or 3 years to really like lean into, hey, there's more for me. And it did. Like I said, it ended up working out. I moved on. I went into being a firefighter, which was, again, very fulfilling. And I got that athlete type of high, and going into fires is absolutely wild, but really exciting. Saving people, birth and baby, like doing all that. Like it was like all the stuff was there.
Fire department, birthing babies?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we do it all.
Wait, what?
Yes, we do it all. Yeah, so our fire department, we're firefighters and we're EMTs. Or medics. Some people are medics.
Like, so people, dude, this is first for me, man.
Yeah.
I think my humor side goes to rescuing cats from trees in a fire.
Which I've done a couple times. No, yeah. So our department, like a lot of departments are moving towards, so you're a firefighter, but you're also, like I said, an EMT or a medic. So we do medical calls, but we can also do the fire calls. So yeah.
That's impressive. So is that after the football career was
Mhm.
firefighting where you felt like, okay, I'm getting a kind of a sense of who I am, or is that
Yeah.
still in the past?
Yeah. So I was doing the firefighting. But in the meantime, like I said, firefighting allows kind of, you don't have a normal schedule like
Yeah.
other people. So it allowed me to start a business, a part-time on the side. And what I did was I kind of said, well, what I want to do as a part-time gig. And I said, well, what is something that maybe happened to me that I don't want to happen to anybody else? And I said, I got it.
Oh,
Create a
oh,
sports agency. So I created a sports agency on the side, thinking that, it might turn into something, maybe not. It turned into something really good, and so I told the athletes, my only goal is to get you to be able to focus on just playing. Like, I don't want you to wake up in the morning and be nervous looking at your phone, worried if I'm working on your behalf. And I did that. Oh man, uh, probably 6 or 7 years.
whoa.
I did that. And so like I said, I had MMA fighters, football players, baseball players, softball players, soccer players,
How do you get yourself
boxers.
to be? It's already hard starting a business, but how do you get yourself in a situation where you can enter some of these spaces? Do you just go to a show and or an event and
No, it
talk to them? Like,
honestly,
how do you
man,
do
like
this?
most of the things in my life are
Yeah.
literally just self-taught.
Okay.
If I look at something, I'm like, I want to do that. I go teach myself or I go learn from somebody. And, I'm just constantly just trying to pick up as much knowledge as possible. I talked to a couple sports agents, just to kind of get their take on it. And,
So,
so I
well,
just
let
really
me ask you.
follow them.
So let me ask you this. So
Yeah.
imagine me. I want to go meet MMA fighter.
Mm.
Do I Google MMA agents and then meet them that way, or like, what is? How do you teach yourself to go in front of these? What does
Yeah.
it look like? I
So,
guess.
so it kind of came of really word of mouth,
Okay.
was really how it started was, hey, there's a former athlete who's helping athletes. So it kind of came to that
Well, you
whole
got that
for
leverage.
athletes by
Yep.
athletes,
Yep.
and so I was already a face I felt like they could trust, which made it easier for me because it was like, hey, I've gone through this,
I know these
and
roads. I built them.
exactly, and I don't want you to go, down the same roads that I went down. So it
Yeah.
made it easy for me to attract people. Because again, it wasn't like, oh, you're a car salesman, you're a shark, you just want money. To me, I was already making money at the fire department. So it was like, I don't need your money. Uh,
Yeah.
I I just really want to help. And if I do make money off of it, hey, it's just a bonus. There were times where, I had a MMA fighter who got hurt really bad in a fight. And I said, hey man, just use my cut for your medical bills. Like,
Oh,
I I don't feel right taking that from you, like I don't know how much it's gonna cost, but whatever it is, like I don't need that.
if I
So
remember
that was
correctly, MMA fighters don't make very much money
they don't.
until you make the big hit. That's what I heard. Like,
They
you
don't.
gotta.
I mean, some of them
Yeah.
do. Like a lot of the ones that we had, they actually made pretty decent money. Um, but again, I would do that for a lot of the athletes. If something would happen, or hey, some emergency, a family emergency, hey, I don't need my cut. Like, do whatever you
So
got to do.
that's an important distinction because when people think about agents, right? It's whether you look in the music industry, the sports world, right?
Hmm.
It seems like greed is quite a driving factor, right? And
Yes.
I remember watching NWA, or Straight Outta Compton, right? And they talk about their agent and how he was,
Mhm.
right? There's a rapper that I like. His name is Hobson. He talks about how his
Oh
agent
yeah.
flew to him and his team over, right? And so it seems like those positions, it's hard to find individuals that are that actually care, and you would be caring about somebody if you agree to whatever you guys both agree to, right? Just even fulfilling the
Yeah.
commitment, right? You're
Yeah.
you're a good agent, right? You don't need to do more, you don't need to do less. But
Right.
you're going above even that, right? To be able to say, hey, keep that pay. So is it just you experiencing the somebody taking advantage of you, and you're like, hey, I just want to show that I'm different, or is it, what drives you to respond in such a manner where you're going above your contract to be able to take
Yeah.
care of something like that?
First and foremost, I like to see people win.
Okay.
I love to see people win, even if I'm not in that winner circle. If I can watch people around me who are winning, that excites me. Secondly, I think someone knowing that somebody has their back. There was lots of times in my life where I did not know if there was anybody who had my back. And that's a scary place to be, where you're just like, man, I don't know if anybody is really here for me, or if people are here for the right reason. Um, and again, some could say that probably was the death of the business, to, just saying, hey, don't worry about it. And I'm fine with that. I had a partner who was the opposite. He was like, no, this is business and this is what we got to do. Rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And people for years told me, hey, you got to get rid of him. And he was a guy who, again, really wasn't like that much. And I was like, nah, he needs this. Like, I can help him, go to the other side. And unfortunately that just wasn't the case. And we ended up breaking up after, some unfortunate things he did under the company. And, but again, like I said, I had success very early on, just because people were like, oh, like, this is different. This isn't,
Yeah.
big corporate, sports management company. This is something that I can get down with. And like I said, we had big athletes, small athletes, and, I wouldn't change a thing.
It's very admirable to hear you say that people. So it sounds like your Achilles heels was you really deeply cared about people, like to the
Yeah.
point where it hurt the business, but it didn't matter to you because you didn't start this business to make money. You did this to take care
No,
of people.
like, I mean, obviously, would I've loved to do this like full time? Absolutely. I think that would be great. But again, even just the trying to help people out, um, it just wasn't the right arena for me to do that, especially with even bringing on people. I kind of looked past the guy on my team, because, I knew this was something he needed and he relied on. And so I missed a lot there as well. Um, so, I mean, at the end of the day, um, the business didn't go as far as I wanted it to, but it went far enough to at least what I feel, make some difference, establish some great relationships. And even now, like, I watch some of the athletes whose careers are still going. And again, it's exciting to me. And whether
Yeah.
I'm making the money or some other agent or whoever's making the money, it's just exciting to see that, they're still getting to do what they love. And hopefully, are fulfilled, with their career.
I went to school at Washington State University, and some of my friends just happened to be athletes, and
Mm.
I really got to connect with them pretty well because one, when I first met them, I had no idea they were athletes. We were just friends. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
right,
so it's really cool. But once you meet one of them and they trust you, they kind of let you into other circles as well.
right.
But one of the things that was very common with a lot of the athletes that I knew at the time was there was a lot of them had a very struggling. They were struggling with their upbringing. Like there was relationship with their fathers was really really tough for a lot of them,
Hmm.
and they were also some of the saddest people on campus,
Yeah,
right? And
well,
it's and a lot of them had a hard time making friends that were not athletes because you just never know. Are you with me just because what I
right.
am to the campus, or are you with me? So when I hear you talk about your relationship with these athletes, it's interesting because at one point you were that 18, 19, 20, 21-year old, 23-year old, right? I don't know what age, but at some point you were talking to somebody that was probably a good amount of years ahead of you, right? Your
Hmm.
agent probably wasn't 20 and you're 24 years
No,
old. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So somebody
right.
older, right?
Hmm.
And so now, so at some level, whether you want to or not, sometimes older male figures can play a role, especially if you quickly trust them. They can play a
Yeah.
role that covers some gap that maybe somebody in your childhood didn't quite get to play, right? And it's
Right.
very, and you're getting seen. They're helping you. Did you find yourself almost like in a, sounds weird saying like in a fatherly role, but to some of these athletes, do they see you more than an agent? Like when you talk,
Yeah. Um,
I don't
there
think
were
came out
multiple
right.
times where I had athletes like hit me up and talk to me just about personal stuff.
Yeah.
And at first, like it was kind of weird to me. I was like, why are you telling me this? But then I looked at it like this person feels comfortable enough to come to me and tell me, and maybe they don't need me to fix the situation. Maybe it's just, hey, I need somebody to talk to. So it started to happen more often than not that people would contact me and say, hey, this is going on, or, I'm getting divorced, or, whatever the case may be. Um, and so, yeah, it did kind of just naturally happen that way, and I'm happy, like I said, the athletes I had, I'm happy they were comfortable enough to come to me, instead of spiraling and me questioning like, man, what's going on with, with this person.
Yeah.
So no, it was, I think, like I said, it happened a lot.
So, I noticed your hat, right? Yahweh,
Yeah.
very, very clear. So, walk me through what that faith journey was like for you. So, was it kind of after that healing process that you started taking your faith a little more serious, or was it even later down the road?
No, so I like I said, I grew up in the church.
Yeah.
My parents very, very strict churchgoers.
Okay.
And it
Bible
actually,
Belt?
uh,
Were you from the Bible Belt? I forgot where you were born from.
from Nevada.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And it was so strict that it almost pushed me away. And so that time period of like high school till college was really like, hey, this is kind of the time to form my own opinions, and I don't need anything else, not needing God. Like I don't need that. And again, and it wasn't until literally that statement my mom made that the light bulb clicked on, and I was like, okay. And so from there, and even after that, like I said, it was still a lot of a struggle with it. And I think the problem with people who come into faith is they don't realize that it work every day. It's not just like you say, hey, I believe, and then people are like, oh, great, life is wonderful, nothing's gonna happen to me. It's quite the
The
opposite.
opposite. Yeah,
You
let's
know,
say.
it's quite the opposite. Nobody tells you about the small print. And so like I said, for a while there was a struggle, and every year it seems to get better and better and better. And so even with this new chapter in my life, I said, hey, if you allow me to get this platform, in filmmaking, like best believe, like this is going straight back to you, and it's going to be, hey, who can I serve to help get to where they want to go, or to get in a better spot. That's what this is going to be used for. And again, I love storytelling. So, storytelling, serving, advancing his kingdom, like that's pretty much the goal.
Yeah, I guess we can go that direction now. I watched a couple of your videos, and so
Yeah.
I watched a couple of them, and I could clearly tell storytelling is something that's important to you. And so, before we go in that direction, I have to ask. So I see the poster behind you, Nipsey Hussle,
Yeah.
right? How would you describe him and the impact that he had for you?
Man, it's so funny enough what drew me to Nipsey Hussle, because there was a point where I knew about him, but I didn't really know about him. And I was
Yeah.
like, man, why is there so much buzz on this guy? Like everybody's just gravitating towards this guy. And so I said, I need to really figure out like what he's about, because media said, oh, this thug and blah, 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 blah. He's in a gang, da, da, da. And it got me thinking. I was like, man, the person delivering this grand message doesn't always look like how people think they are supposed to look. Everybody
Mhm.
thinks that this clean cut person is coming to give this strong message. But what I loved about him is, he was community first, and, he had this sense of faith in him, and his family was important. It was never about self. And I was like, man, this is the whole, journey that I was living in college, was figuring out how to get away from self, and always constantly trying to build people up, give people knowledge. And again, just how he was building his community up and doing what he said he was going to do, and using his platform to really push this message.
Yeah.
And then when he was killed, I realized, like, he was on to something,
Oh yeah.
and typically when people start getting this platform and really getting this message
Are
out
we
that
going?
people
Are we
start
going
buying
down that path?
into.
Are we going down that path?
All right, hey,
Okay, I like this. Keep going. I like this. I'm curious. Keep going. I like this.
and I feel like, I mean, you think about any figure
Yep.
in life, whether that
Yep.
was Jesus, whether that was Martin Luther King, whoever,
Yep.
they get to this point where people start to empower people,
Yep.
and immediately, they get taken out,
Yep.
and that message has to end, and somebody is going to stop it. And
Have you
that's
heard
kind of
of
what I
the?
saw from him.
Have you ever heard of the allegory of the cave?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's the idea of allegory of the cave, right? Somebody gets enlightened, comes
Mm-hmm.
back and tries to reveal it to people,
It tries
but
to reveal. Yeah.
people can't handle it. Yeah, and gets taken out. One of the things that shocked me about Nipsey Hussle was um, there's something to be said about an individual that multitude of gangs have a respect for.
Yes.
That throws me off a little. You know what I mean? Like it's like, okay, hold up. How does this person? These gangs hate each other, but they can have
Right.
a common understanding that this person
I'm
is
understanding
different.
with him. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's part of the resume that for me it's like it's very intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
That again, it's I don't know his personal life or anything like that, but once he passed away, it sounded like a lot of groups kind of, and even while he was alive, he was able to go in certain areas that a lot of people would not
And a
be
lot
able
of
to.
people couldn't. I mean,
Yeah,
he just had such a strong message, and just even what he lived by with, the marathon continues, and like, just life is a marathon, and you think about it, and you're like,
have you
yes.
heard his interviews?
It-
Well, he'd be doing circles around people.
oh my God. Like, I wish people would watch his interviews, because again, at first glance, people are like, oh, like, this guy, there's no way that he has anything that he could give me. But I would tell anybody, go watch his interviews, because his interviews, the stuff he says, it, I mean, it's amazing,
Yeah,
So I mean, he again, he was very impactful, and really left a lasting legacy. And I just loved everything that, he stood for.
yeah. Do you know much about the works that he was doing with Dr. Sabi? Did you hear about that?
A little bit, a little bit.
Okay, okay. That's yeah. So that's one of those that's like Dr. Sabi was like a naturopath healer kind
Yeah.
of individual, right? And
Hmm.
apparently, like the conspiracy, right, is that
Hmm.
um him and Nick Cannon were working on a project trying to expose this. So Dr. Sabi apparently did a lot of healings, like I'm talking about like diabetes, cancer, all these things that
Right.
like
Yeah.
apparently took it to court, ended up winning the case, like he didn't lose, right? And then somehow mysteriously this person gets up dying,
Owns up
right? And
dying.
then
Yeah.
yeah, so then they're working on the project, and then apparently after Nipsey, then McKenna dropped it, and so there's something about truth that like um the more you silence it, the more starts to come out.
Yes. I mean, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's funny, when I was still a firefighter, I remember I was at the hospital one time, and there was this doctor um, in the break room with me. And we're just, we're talking. And again, it's late at night. I just said, I'm gonna ask him this question. And so I
Yeah.
said, hey, do you think there is a cure for cancer? And he kind of sat there and he said, yeah, he said, there is. And I was like, okay, explain. He said, easy. He said, well, cancer's like $1 billion industry. He said,
Yeah. Yeah.
why would I heal you and lose out on the paycheck if I could just keep you sick
Yep.
and keep making money? He said, we could cure everything. He said,
Yeah.
but we're never going to because we're going to lose money. And I was like, I mean, that makes sense, you know? And again, I believe that there's
What was
cures
that?
out there that just will unfortunately may not be released or may be released at a later date at a really expensive price. You know, you just never know. But just when you hear stuff like that, it kind of just blows your mind and you think like, man, like people are really on something that a lot of people don't want people to hear about.
Um, Chris Rock has a stand up where he talks about, he's like, you mean to tell me, he's like, we can send astronauts to the moon? The
Right.
Cadillac can't make a bumper that won't fall off, right? It's like the whole idea is like they're not that dumb, right? If it can,
Right.
the cure is in the money, right? It's the money is what they're
Exactly.
after. Yeah,
Exactly.
I about 3 weeks ago, maybe it might be a month ago. I was sitting at a restaurant and I was
Mm.
talking to a lady and she's a local lady and she told me about her husband is a naturopath doctor and some of the things that they've been able to cure. Right, and we're hoping one day we can put them on the pod, but
Yeah.
yeah, you hear that and you're like, there's a party that's like, this woman doesn't seem like a liar. You know what I mean? Like I don't know the
Right.
person, but
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like a liar. And it's kind of like when with a child, right? If you have a curious child and you keep shutting them down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eventually that child is going to go down that path or whatever
Go
it
down the
is,
path.
good or
Right.
bad. But if you can teach the child, give them the skills that is needed, right? And you push them to explore,
Right.
right? And yeah, so okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. So I just saw that poster behind, and I was like, okay, I gotta ask.
Oh
So,
yeah.
so as an individual, what point did um again based off of your upbringing to going to the football, professional football, to being able to transition into firefighting, and then eventually the film industry, or you went to an agent, and then the film industry eventually
Yeah.
comes in. How did storytelling become a thing for you? Like, at what point in your life did you realize this is what you want to do?
So that's actually always been a part of my life. And
Okay,
the only reason I got started in storytelling, you're gonna see a big theme is my mom. So, um, when I
always
when I
moms, man.
moved out here to Virginia, I had been, like I said, with the fire department for a few months, and so my mom called me, and she's really excited, and she says, "Hey, do you still write stories?" And so apparently when I was a kid, I would write books and I would make her read them. I would just sit there and just story tell all day on pieces of paper. I would staple them together and say, "Hey, I want you to read this." And I was like, "No, I don't really write anymore." She was like, "I think you should write." And I said, "No." She's like, "No, it'll be good for you. It's it will relieve some stress. I think you should write again. You were such a good writer and you tell great stories." And I said, "Yeah, I was a little kid. Like, I don't do that anymore." And she literally did this every week. She would say, "Hey, you should write." So finally it got to a point where she said, "Hey, I know you love movies. I know you love writing. You should write a movie script." And I said, "No, I'm not going to write a movie script." And she said, "No, I think you should. I think it'd be great." And, uh, and so she said, "Well, I'll make a deal with you. I'm gonna make a bet." She said, "I want you to write a script and it can't be on something you know. So it can't be sports or football. It can be sports, but you just can't do football. I want you to write a script and I want you to submit it to wherever you submit it to." And, and so, I had to do some research and I found out, about film festivals. And, she says, "I want you to submit and see what happens." And, I said, "All right." So, I'm teaching myself how to screenwrite. It's an awful process.
How old are you at this
And
point?
I am 20. 27, 28.
Okay.
Think might be a little bit younger, but she so I teach myself. I take a couple weeks. I start writing the script, and so it takes me like a good couple months to finish this script. I finish it and I submit it to 4 competitions, and so I'm waiting. Week goes by, I don't hear anything. Another week goes by, I don't hear anything. I hit her up and I say, hey, I just wasted a whole couple months writing this script and I didn't even
Well,
hear nothing. And she was like, no, just give it another week. Like, just wait.
how many
So I
pages is
wait,
the script? Like when
you
you write a
know.
script, how many pages are these?
So the first one I wrote was only like, it was only like 20 pages, 25 pages.
I don't think I've ever written that many pages, bro.
So it wasn't terrible,
Oh
but
God, no, that's awful. I'm sorry, dog. There's no way, man. It's
no, and so finally, the next week I have these 4 emails and I'm scared to open them. And so I open them and I won every single one of the competitions
oh
for short script competition. I won every single one of them.
damn.
And so I was like, man, I got to call her back. And so I
Yeah.
call her. I'm like, hey, uh, I won these competitions. And she said, yeah, I know you did. And so she said, yeah, that's why you should have listened to me when I told you to play baseball. And so I was like, ah, okay.
Dang.
And I
Yeah.
said, all right, well, you had your fun. And she said, no, you're going to keep writing. And I said, okay. She said, that's the deal. You keep writing, you keep storytelling, you keep getting better. And so that really is kind of where I'm at now, is just still writing, and trying to tell the best stories I can. So, yeah, like I said, it was only because of a bet.
Oh, that's a good bet to lose.
It is.
Um,
It is.
so what kind of what is the genre that you're in, and what kind of messages do you like to focus on in your
Yeah.
films?
So I'm actually in every genre. The one thing
Okay.
I didn't want to do is I did not want to box myself into where I could only do this genre or I could only do that genre. So I said I want to be able to see if I can write all genres.
Okay.
And so I've written like a rom-com, I've written comedy, or everything. I've done
Yeah.
every genre, action, and so just and really it was more of a play for me to not be able to have somebody say no. We don't we're not looking for an action script. Oh, okay, cool. I got a comedy. Well, we're not looking for comedy. Oh, well, I got a horror script. So never giving anybody a chance to tell me no. So I'll write everything. Whatever comes to mind. Like I said, now it's either I have a notebook with me or my phone, and as soon as an idea comes, I jot it down, and that's going to be the next idea, down the line. So
Dude, the way your mind works is it's quite there's no way for me to grasp. Like I don't understand how your mind works. So is it when you're writing a script, is it you sit
yeah,
down and write it up all at once, or is it like this is a month and month and month project? When
it's
idea
oh yeah, it's month. So there's phases. So I have the idea phase,
okay.
and then I say, would this be a cool idea? Like, is there anything like it? So I go through this whole like process of elimination. And once I find that, hey, this is a unique idea, or if it's close to an idea, there's still differences, or this is something that I think people would be interested in. So from there, I create like a log line, which basically is briefly describing, hey, this is what it's about. Then I write the synopsis, trying to figure out like who my characters are. And so I'm coming up with the characters in my head,
Yes.
and what their age is, what their personality is. And so you'll find with a lot of filmmakers, it like we seem crazy because we're like talking to ourselves. We're like, yeah, I think this would be a good character or whatever. And so once I have all that information, I start kind of getting an idea of like, okay, how does this story play out? And once I get in that idea, then I always create a soundtrack, always. Whether that's going to actually be the soundtrack for it or not It doesn't matter to me, but that's literally like my writing soundtrack.
Yeah.
And so I will write to, the music that's playing, and it'll kind of get me in the mood of like, okay, this is, you know, exactly what I need for this scene or whatever, and so then once I get a rough draft or the first
Yep.
draft, then I go back through and, then it's either rewrite time or, finding mistakes. And so it could take months. Some
Yep.
scripts can kick your butt and take years. Me, I'm like if I see an idea, I'm instantly like drawn to another idea, and so it's tough to actually like stay on track. But like I said, if you do, it can take months to a year, just depending on, what you're writing.
What part of film or what part of writing is the most difficult for you? Is it the developing of the characters? Is it the plot? Is what where do you
Um,
find the
it's I think it's the story itself. I think it's the hardest. Like I said, characters have always come to me easy. Uh, the ideas have always come really easy, but knowing, kind of making nothing or bringing something from nothing is
yeah.
the most difficult piece. And saying, you know, I know the beginning, the middle, and the end. Sometimes I might know the beginning, sometimes I might know the middle, sometimes I might just know the end. So having to bring all that together, I think is the most difficult piece, in just creating, like I said, nothing, into something.
So when you're looking at the work that you have done, what is one work that doesn't have to be your best work, but can you give us and the listeners just kind of like what is the story that you did and what was the message behind it? And how so essentially how did you come up with it? What
Yeah.
is kind of the plot of the story and what's the message you were trying to communicate?
Yeah. So one of the projects that actually is kicked my butt really bad and has been like 4 years and counting in the making. It's finally in post production and it's getting finished. But um, so a lot of filmmakers will start off with like short films, and they'll do, and they'll build up these short films. My brain doesn't work like that. I wanted to know if this was really something I wanted to do. So I said, oh, I'm going big or go home. I'm gonna do a feature film.
Yeah.
Um, Terrible idea, but it taught me a lot. Um, and so it was awful. It was an awful process. It was difficult, and this was my first time actually, having wrote it and directing it, and having to put all these pieces together. But what it taught me is I absolutely want to do this and I can do it. And if I can make it through this process, 100%. But with that, I said, funny enough, because I wrote this in 2019, and that's when we started. And so what it was is I said, hey, it would be crazy if there was a vaccine that had adverse effects. Now they actually got me in trouble
2019?
in 2019.
2019?
In
Yo.
2019, and I have proof. I have proof
Yeah.
that, and it got the teaser trailer pulled from YouTube because they were like, "Hey, whoa, like you have some
Really?
propaganda," and I was like, "No, no, no, like this. I did this in 2019. Like I didn't even know that the whole COVID thing was happening,
Wait,
but
did they
that's
ban your
essentially what it
video?
was.
They took your
Was
video down?
Oh, they took it down. They put it back up, but they took it down, and essentially what it was like if a vaccine that someone created had adverse effects and people started turning into, we won't say necessarily zombies, but like
Yeah.
turning into things. And so that's what the premise was. And so, and the only cure was this kid who had a blood disease and was immune to it. And
Mm.
so that was, like I said, the whole premise of it. And it actually took me 2 weeks to come up with that. And it was literally while I was getting my blood drawn. I was like, they could be injecting me with anything, like,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
uh, and so that's how the idea came about. And that one, I had the whole story in my head already. It was literally the drive home. I had the beginning of it. I had the middle. I had all of it, so I was speeding home so I could just start writing. And so that process wasn't as bad. Um, I think the hardest thing on that was just like how to make these characters make sense and how to make people root for these characters or hate these characters. That was the hardest part for me. But yeah, that process it wasn't too bad. That took me maybe a month. It took me a month to write. So
If you were to write a character that was a genius versus a character that's foolish, which would be more difficult to write? The genius or the foolish?
I think it'd be the foolish one.
The foolish.
With the genius, you have so much to go off of.
Yeah.
But what makes his character a foolish character? Like, is it, and again, is he acting this way because he just doesn't want to let the rest of the world know that he's actually a genius too? Or is he actually a foolish character? So, I mean, that gives you more to go off of as opposed to, oh, it's just, this genius character. It's easy because he doesn't seem like he has any flaws. But when you have flawed characters, those are the ones that make the best characters.
Are there certain films that you have watched that have inspired you to where you are?
Oh,
Like, what would be some of those films?
oh man. So one film I really love is so I love Kill Bill. Kill Bill is like
Okay.
one of my absolute favorite
Quentin
movies.
Tarantino, huh?
Quentin Tarantino, as weird as he is,
Yeah, weird is an
he,
understatement.
yeah,
He's on class of
but
his own, man.
man,
Yeah.
he's a film genius, and you look at just some of the things that he's done, and just even like even looking back at like old westerns, and like John Ford is a phenomenal director that did like Stagecoach and stuff. Like even when you look at that and you see like the limited amount of resources they had, but the stuff they were able to do, um, absolutely phenomenal, and again, I love, Spielberg stuff. Deion Taylor is a independent director that I absolutely fall in love with his stuff because it's just real. I love just real directors that create real material. Um, so no, I mean, hundreds of thousands of
Yeah.
films that, I just will gravitate towards. Especially, when I have an idea of like, hey, I want to do a suspense film. I might watch Alfred Hitchcock, or I might, go watch somebody else, just depending, on what I'm really trying to learn to get better at.
Yep. 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 Is there a film that you're working on right now that uh what would that be? What's that film that you're on right now?
Yeah. I have a couple. So there's one that I have a teaser trailer out for called Round One. And Round One is again, it's
It's like a
my
Michael J.
graduation.
White kind.
Uh,
Sounds like a Michael J. Kind of film. Round one.
yeah, it's like my graduation film into a bigger budget. This film is gonna take a significantly bigger budget than what I've been doing. Um, and it's a boxing film and inspirational boxing drama. And that one, like I said, I've done a little bit on, but again, the hunt for investors is it's awful. This would be a
Really?
time where I would say I would love to have an agent to go take care of that for me, so I didn't have to do it. But yeah, Round One, I'm working on that. I just finished a really good psychological horror film called Black Line, and what else? I did a project with a buddy of mine, Ariel, who is a great, phenomenal writer and director, and we wrote a script called Skin Deep, which is actually currently um, being looked at by investors. And that
Really?
one is cool because it's a horror film, and you've never seen a horror film that involves a firefighter. You just never seen it. Because
That's
firefighters,
right.
are the heroes, and
Yeah.
and that's all
Yeah.
you see them as. Well, this will change
That's
your entire
wild.
mind. It's
Yeah.
wild. It's wild, and I'm so excited to hopefully get to put that
There's a
out
lot of
next
potential.
year. Oh yeah,
A lot
oh
of things
yeah.
you can do. Yeah. Now you're gonna
So,
have all these kids afraid of firefighters now about to.
yeah, but you know what though? When you see it, you'll understand why. Like you'll be like, oh, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah,
So, we'll see. So, like I said, there's a lot of things, going on and just waiting for the right time, the right people to come along and get those projects going.
it's interesting. The whole time you were talking, at no point did I ever think investors. Like that's
It,
insane. So in your industry, a lot of times you're putting the cart before the horse. Sometimes,
oh,
right? Because
always.
you're planning. Yeah, yeah. So and then the only way that's the other way around is once you built a reputation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you always
Once you
have the
build a
horse.
reputation. I mean, but
You
I
have the
will say,
horse.
even when you build a reputation, there are still some, you might still have a project that, uh, for whatever reason, just can't get funded. Like Scorsese, the Irishman took, I believe, 10 years for them to get it funded. And mind you, Scorsese is,
Go to
top
the
directors
goats.
in the world,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
who would tell him no? So it happens. Um, but again, not very often, does it happen to him where he's told no, he can't. So, once you get a following, significantly easier. But until then, either it's, hey, you're putting your own money in and hoping for the best, or, you do find the investors who are like, hey, we want to get behind your projects, which is, again, great feeling. And then, you're off to the races. So
Do you remember the film Sharknado? Remember it was like 2011, 2012, 2013,
yes,
2014.
I remember.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember, dude, I remember going to Atlanta and I think I was at a Subway or something,
Mhm.
and they had like Sharknado 5, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, dude. And here's
Ridiculous.
the
Like,
thing, they know this is comedy, and it's
uh,
like the more, and man, I know a lot of people are making fun of Fast Furious gets this now, right? It's like we're in space now, right? Cars
right,
are just doing most impossible thing. Next is like we got to go to the next planet or something.
right.
But so in your, it's very impressive at it's very impressive seeing your resume and the road, the maps you've gone down, and you've had plenty of opportunities to invest in the next generation, and it sounds like that's what you were able to do. In the same way that we say that, like, money has a way of revealing things about people, right?
Hmm.
And in your situation, it almost feels like the rejection of money rather than like, so you had agents that chose money and they were going after
Yeah,
the
yeah,
big
yeah.
stuff. For you, it's like your test was, do I care more about this individual than the finance that comes from this? And you've
Right.
chosen individuals. And I guess the next kind of direction I'm trying to take this a little bit is, I know you're a father as well,
Mhm.
right? How do you balance all of this? I mean, it sounds like a lot.
Um, yeah, having a phenomenal wife. I mean, to be completely honest, not even joking, just someone who
Yeah.
will check me and be like, "Yo, you're getting too focused," and and kind of saying, "Okay, cool." When I'm not able to realize that I'm, moving in one direction, and forgetting about, my other responsibilities. And again, it makes it easy, um, to balance when you have a family. And I think that's the one thing. And again, I can't wait till I do my Oscar speech because I talk about this all the time where like the real MVPs are the people who support the people doing the film. And they're
Yeah.
often forgot about, and those are the people who really need to get the recognition and get the awards because, they're the ones at home taking care of everything, or they're the ones, who have to miss time with this individual. Um, and so my family is actually very supportive. And so it makes it easy for me, and also keeps me on track to not forget about them, while I'm doing this, and there's times where I'm like, hey, I need to reschedule something because I'm spending time with my family.
Yeah.
So I never forget, the people who are allowing me to do this. Um, and again, I also actually, recently I got to, do a movie with my kids. My kids showed
I was
interest
just
in
about to ask
film.
about the involvement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I was really nervous, being a dad, you're nervous and you're like, it's different. I don't know. And, they said, no, we want to be in this movie with you. And so the director, gave him a look, and he said, "Man, I really like him," and he put him in the film. And I had more nerves than they did, and
Yeah.
they crushed all their lines, and I didn't think
So
they could remember lines. They're crushing it, and they did a phenomenal job. And so even just to let them experience my world, and that was the one thing with my dad. I never got to experience his world, and I wanted to, but I was never invited. And so I made a point that, hey, my kids will get to see my world. And, if they don't want to be in it, that's cool, but at least they've seen it. But no, they wanted to get involved, and they did. And like I said, did a phenomenal job.
I can't imagine. I got two little girls. I can't imagine um, engaging your kids something that you're really passionate about, and like, because I know there's a part of you that's like, okay, am I pushing this on them? Right? There's
Right.
like you don't want that. There's that wrestling that ends up happening, but for you to be able to look at them and get that confirmation, like, no, we want to do this. Like, imagine if this is where you are as an individual. Imagine the shoulder they're gonna jump off of when they decide to make this their thing as well.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, again, this industry is a very weird, crazy, and scary industry. And so at least I know that if this is something they want to do, like they'll have that protection. And you're right. That was the big question for me is like, am I pushing them to this? Because that, everybody always asks, why don't your kids play football?
Yeah,
And there was a point where I was like pushing it because I was like, it's only natural. They got to go play football. My two boys got to go play. But it became more about me than it was about them. And I said, I don't want that. Like, I want them to make their own path. Like, if this is something
yeah,
they want to do, I'm going to be here to support. But if it's not, at least I know at the end of it, they're not going to be like, I only did this because you want me to do it, So I kind of took a step back and, football wasn't their thing, and that's perfectly fine. So for this, it was a special moment because it was just like, no, like seriously, this is something we want to try and do.
yeah.
And like I said, I had a great time, and I look forward to hopefully doing another movie with them, and or just seeing, if they pursue it more and they have a career of their own.
Yeah, yeah. That's really challenging. My daughter. So my favorite color is orange. My daughter,
Yeah.
youngest one, Enid. She's 4 years old, and one day she's like, "Dad, what's your favorite color?" And I was like, "Oh, orange." And so then it was like a week goes by, and then she's like, "So I was like, Enid, what's your favorite color?" And she's like, "Oh, pink and orange." And then she's
Uh,
like, "Dad, what's your favorite color?" And I said, "Orange." She's like, "No, yours is black." So now she tells me what my favorite color is,
yeah.
right? Like it becomes like her favorite color now is mine.
Right.
And I'm noticing like the things like she likes to do, and it's like she likes to dance. I'm not a dancer, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But it's like, I'm like, but I know she enjoys. Like, I'm a basketball's my thing, baseball's my thing, soccer.
Right.
But like watching my kids, and I'm like, okay, I got to get her into gymnastics because she's happy here, even
Right.
though that means probably going to be dancing more now with her,
Right.
right? Because which I don't like. I like. I'm
Right. Right.
part of the reason I don't like dancing is just it's become every song has a dance to it now. You just can't dance it. Everything's got a
Mhm.
specific. But so it's really cool to see you wrestle with that as well, because I think the issue is when the wrestling stops, right? When
Yeah. Yeah.
that
You're right.
wrestling is
Yeah.
there's something about being able to constantly ask yourself that question, like, hey, am I driving this or are my kids driving
Right.
this?
Mhm.
We forget just how much our kids soak up. Like I'm having to watch what I say already. She's 4 years old. I
No.
gotta watch what I say, what I do.
Right.
There's a moment where I we're eating McDonald's at my house, and I
Mhm.
grabbed the trash and I shot it, right, and I missed, and I just left it there. And then 10 seconds later, she grabs it and throws it, not even close to the trash. And then I thought to myself, I was like, okay, I got to be careful of this because
You
now
have to
this is what
care.
she's going to
Yeah.
do every time we sit down. She's just going to throw it. She
Right.
saw what I did. What are some things
Exactly.
that you've seen your kids learn from you that's made you proud as a father? Like what have you seen them do that you're like, man, like this makes me happy.
Yeah. Really just the perseverance, and not wanting to, or not accepting quitting. Accepting, because I tell them, hey, failure is inevitable, but we never fail, we only learn.
Mm,
So I would never be mad at you if you fail, but the minute you decide that you're gonna give up, like then I am upset. And that's really what they've taken, and they ran with it, with everything they do. Whether it's something that they're learning for the first time, they're not very good. Like my daughter, she just actually started travel soccer, and it was a step up in competition. The last kids she was playing with, she was killing them, and then she goes here, totally different. These girls are all good, and
Yeah.
so it was a tough first showing, and I just knew that she was going to say, "I don't want to do this anymore," and it's quite the opposite. She said, "No, I want to do it. I want to do it." And the next game came, and I was nervous. I was like, "Oh man, like I don't know what's gonna happen." But she ended up. They put her at goalie, and she stopped the game-winning goal. So I look at that, and I'm like, man, she could have quit. She didn't, and so I love the fact that she does watch me and my wife. We just don't quit. Even times where it looks like we should just quit and give up, we don't. And our kids have taken that and, like I said, taken it to a whole nother level. So, it just makes me happy to know that at least if anything, if there's nothing else I can teach them, I know that when they go off on their own, that they just will not, the first, go to isn't going to be to just give up and say, well, it is what it is.
Yep. Yep. That's beautiful, man. Perseverance is, I've always tried to figure out, is that something that's taught, or is that something that, somebody has from them?
Yeah. I feel like there is a natural aspect to it. But I feel like to fully reach the full potential of that, I think a part of it is learned. Um, because I think knowing how to use it or to spot situations where you feel like quitting, I think you just have to be put in those situations and learn from them to actually see, what perseverance actually looks like. So I think it's a little bit of both.
In this, hour and a half that we've been talking, one of the questions I have to ask you, because it's really bothering me, not in a bad way, but like I have to ask it, is who were who are the individuals that transformed you? Like, who are the people that you're like, man, here's three or four people that if they were
Mm,
listening right now, I want them to know this.
yeah. One of them was I had this teacher in elementary
It's
school.
teachers, man.
I know
Dude, it's teachers, bro. They're
the teachers,
so
man. You
valuable.
know what? It breaks my heart, seeing how much they get paid.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of really good teachers out there. And I had this teacher named Miss Bunker, and scared the hell out of me.
Mm.
She was so tough and so strict, and she wanted perfection. She wanted things done a certain way, and I was scared to death. I don't know what this lady wants, and but I grew to love her because she forced me to give my best. And there's some teachers where they'll allow you to slack or do whatever. She never allowed me to slack. It was
Yeah.
always like, nah, like even when I was good at something, like I could draw, and I drew this picture, and I just drew it because whatever. It was better than everybody else in the class, and that's all that mattered. And she said, "Nah, you're gonna take this back home, and you're gonna redo it."
Hey.
And I was like, "No, I'm not. I finished the assignment." So she called my mom in and said, "I just want to show you that I know how well he's able to do this assignment, and this is what he did. So he's gonna go home. He's gonna redo it." I ended up redoing it. And again, I didn't like it in the moment, but moving forward, I always got to give my best. Always have to do it. There's been
That was
I
Miss
had a
Bunker.
coach, Mrs. Bunker.
Miss Bunker.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mrs. Bunker. That's awesome. It's interesting because you talk about football and how you didn't really have to work very hard, right? Because it's
No.
like this natural talent you had. So it's interesting that she caught that early in other areas too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it was really cool. And like I said, it's after that, she was like my best friend. And I actually had a Pop Warner coach who, uh, again, two Pop Warner coaches, and they both saw the very best in me, but also saw through the BS of like, this is easy for you. and you're going to go above and beyond or else. And, and one was Coach Torrey and Coach Shepard. And they both just, again, and I think they're part of the perseverance where, we know you're good and we don't care that you're good. Like you're going to go do like a 2-minute wall sit, and do that. And at Pop Warner, do your wall sits was awful. But, if you got up, you started over. You got up, you start over again, and then kind of ingraining it in my head that like you can do anything for 2 minutes, and after that 2 minutes, it's over. So you might as well just get through it, and we're all embracing the suck together, So, so again, I've had so many people, and unfortunately, like I said, this would be a 4-hour show if I could tell you all the great people in my life, but I've had so many great people, like I said, parents, friends, my wife, kids, my kids inspire me every day. So, no, a lot of great people that I have to lean on.
That's beautiful. So there's some celebrities that you've come across that have been exciting to meet. Who are some people?
So I actually met Michael Jai White, and yeah.
Oh man, dude,
I met Michael Jai White in New
closest
York.
thing to anime character, by the way. He's, in my opinion, he's the closest thing to an actual anime character.
Yes. Real life anime character, 100%. 100%. When I met him in New York at a film festival for a script I had submitted, and it was like a film festival / like a Comic-Con type thing, and he was there, and I told my wife, I was like, if there's nothing else we do, I just have to meet him, and so we were the first ones in line, and so it was cool because being the first ones in line, I got to talk to him and his wife. And, and when you meet most celebrities, it's a letdown. And with him, like him and his wife were laughing, joking, talking with us, like it was nothing, and that's what I really respected about him. I was like, man, like it's exactly what I thought it was going to be. And so he was great.
Let me ask you a question on him, because he's somebody for me that's really fascinating individual, because like there's actors, right, and so like when you watch any Marvel character, right, and you see them play, they're playing a role. When you see Keanu Reeves in John Wick, people don't realize he's actually really good. He's not maybe John Wick good, but like he knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing. Like he's actually a killer. Like
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. He don't mess around. So then Michael Jai White, it's Jai, right? It's pronounced Jai.
Michael Jai White.
Mm-hmm. You see him, and it's like he's not acting. Like these things are not.
And he's so honest. That's what's crazy is like obviously he's cut up and everything, but he's so unassuming that it's scary. Because you look at him,
which is all the roles that he plays, minus The Dark Knight. I feel like all the films I've ever seen him play, he is that quiet, like, hey, some dudes who have no idea who it is, right? He's just drinking tea or something, and they just got to knock it out of his hand. Right. You've done that to anybody else in the world.
Right. It's nuts. And even like, because I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm taller than him and I'm looking at him. I'm like, to me on screen, you're like 7 feet tall. Like that's how tall I thought you were, but when you see him, he's like, no, and he's just such a chill guy. And he doesn't really talk about his mark. Like I brought him martial arts and, but he, just was joking, just a regular guy. So it's really cool, to see someone like that, and you're like, oh man, this was a good experience, because I've had some bad ones where I'm like, damn, I can't even believe that he was somebody I wanted to meet,
Well, they say never meet your heroes, right?
Never meet your heroes. Oh, yeah, they're right about it.
No, Michael Jai White, that's I remember the one with him and Kimbo Slice.
Oh man. Yeah.
And I remember watching a video where he's teaching him how to punch.
Yes.
I remember, the speed one, you just watch that and you're like I can't imagine how frustrating it is for somebody, Kimbo Slice, just monster of monsters, right? Rest in peace, obviously, but monster of monsters. And he's just like punching him, a third of the speed?
Can't dodge it. Crazy. Yeah.
It's people like him that make me really want, like, just how important technique is. Like
Yeah.
when you talked about your football, again, I don't know too much about football, and I might be insinuating a little too much, but like when you told me your size and the position you were playing, my head immediately went to, okay, he must have some techniques that are just advanced,
Yeah.
and that's what saved him.
Speed and
Is
quickness was literally like I said, if I cannot be stronger than them, there
yeah,
has to be something that I can do significantly better than them. And it was the fact that if I'm quicker than them and I can use technique to get by, like then I'm good. But no, you're right. Technique is everything. I mean, you think about baseball, the swing, it's not just
yeah.
swinging. A golf swing, it's not just, because you can go up there and try and just swing, it doesn't have the same effect. So technique is everything.
Okay, so we're gonna take you through some sports questions. So
Yeah.
Pete Rose, Hall of Fame or no?
I think yeah. I think it's the question of separating the person, from what they did. Like he a great baseball player? Yeah.
Yeah,
Did he do something stupid? 100%. But we should be able to separate the two and say, okay, let's at least acknowledge him for his baseball, whatever. But
yeah.
hey, it is
He
what it
bet
is.
on his team to win. That's what I don't understand. It'd be different if he was positional so that they would lose. He
That they
bet
would
on,
lose, right?
yeah, but he bet on. Okay, Barry Bonds, Hall of Fame or no?
Oh, Barry Bonds is a tough one for me. I would say yes, but Barry, but he's kind of a jerk,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I would be against it. I would be
yeah.
against it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd be against it now.
Okay. You should go look at his resume before he got a little bit bigger. Uh,
Oh, oh, I know. Oh, I know.
okay. All right. So okay. Sports. I know you said a little bit about basketball. Who's your goat?
Like I grew up in the era of Jordan. So it's definitely Jordan, but like Kobe is there too. Like I always say Kobe and Jordan are on the same plane.
Yeah,
Always.
yeah.
It's very difficult to separate the two. And I know people, bring LeBron into the conversation. But again, like matching style for style and
Yeah.
just
I mean,
dominant.
people would say that Kobe was more skilled than MJ
Oh,
was.
yeah,
Yeah,
100%. So I absolutely say it's a toss up between those two. And again, people got to remember Kobe decided to stop playing. Really didn't have to, but he decided to stop playing. So there's a lot that we still really, have no idea about. But yeah, I would say it's a toss between him and Jordan.
it's it's interesting now because like people are starting to pull up old films of Jordan, right? And
Yeah,
like I just saw one recently. I mean, people are like, film is starting to come out, but you
yeah,
said something earlier that I think is interesting. You talked about pharmaceuticals and there's money in this, right? And there's a lot of money to be made if Michael Jordan is the greatest thing, right? There's a lot of, I mean, the dollars you get from shoes. And so if these videos keep leaking, right, and you start to, because
and
again, never meet your heroes, right? It's like when you start to look at
no,
the details of things start to look a little different. But I've always wondered if I could start a team with Kobe or if I start a team with MJ. I know a lot of people say easily MJ, but it's like to be able to see how Kobe was able to build his team after Shaq left.
yes.
That's very, very interesting. And we see what Michael Jordan was when he was averaging
when he
36
was
points a
when it was
game.
after. I mean, and even when he was on, the Wizards,
Yeah,
it just I feel
yeah,
like Kobe was just wherever he would just step into,
yeah,
it just had to be. There was no other choice. It just had to be good. So I
yeah.
don't know. It
Like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, I think is closer to the GOAT conversation than Kobe, in my opinion. But here's the thing: there's no universe I would ever draft Kareem over Kobe.
heck no.
Yeah, that's what. So that's what makes sports. That's what makes some
Heck no. I mean,
sports
but
like.
there's so many like that though. You got Wilt
Yeah.
Chamberlain, you got Bill
Yep.
Russell, which again, Bill Russell, has the most championships, and you look at those guys, and it's tough to not take a GOAT status away from them. Like
Yep.
you want to give it to them just because the resume alone is
Oh.
outstanding. But when you say, hey, would you draft them over this person? It's like, oh yeah, I wouldn't do
Heck,
that.
there's man, like I've been watching because there's a Instagram page I follow that they show you
Mm,
like old clips of like back
mm.
in the day. I should not watch basketball and think I could play in that. You know what I mean? Like I'm not that great, but I be watching some of these films and I'm like, I could do that. Like that doesn't seem very.
Yeah.
So I feel like this. It's hard. How do you respect? How do you give people their flowers, but at the same time recognize evolution as like we're evolved? Things are
Yeah. I
better.
mean, I think it just comes into that whole humbleness, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it can be done because if you look at a player like Kobe, who is a very alpha mindset, and I would never say anybody's better than me, but he was able to give Jordan his flowers and there was no animosity. So I think it can be done. I just think there are a lot of athletes who are really good in this newer generation who feel like it's weak if they do give flowers to,
Yeah.
someone who came before them
Yeah.
when that's not the case. I just think it's, like I said, it's a different era. And, with Kobe, it just seemed natural. So,
Yep. 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 Kobe, Nipsey Hussle. What
hmm
is I guess in closing, question I want to ask you is what are certain things that you would say like, hey, here's certain things that I know your walk with God is really important to you, and I feel like one of the
yeah.
hardest things sometimes for people is to be able to speak about themselves in a way that can seem like bragging. But I'm asking this question not for you to brag, but for you to kind of recognize where you're gifted. But what are the attributes? What are some skills that you said that you've been gifted with that you recognize?
Mm. I mean,
I know
first
it's
and
a weird
foremost,
question. Yeah,
yeah, it
it's hard to
is.
answer, right? Because it can seem like you're being arrogant, but
Right. No, I mean,
yeah,
first and foremost, and it's funny you say that because I told somebody this the other day, and I was like, man, that sounds like really egotistical when I say it, but if you look at the deeper meaning behind it,
hmm
you understand why I say it the way I do. But I say storytelling and creating are like my two biggest superpowers, and it's the thing that I feel is the closest thing um, why I feel like creatives have a closer relationship to God, because that is essentially what he does is create and bring nothing into
something out of
something,
nothing. Yeah,
and so when you do that, there is a sense of like empowerment. You're like, man, like I can't believe that I took this idea and I made it this, and then I turned it into this. And when you see the steps that are put into it, like it just blows your mind. And that's why, I truly believe in like God-given talent, with creating. And, so I would say 100%, like I say, creating and storytelling are two things that, I just feel like I'm not matched at, and, it just comes to me at such an easy rate, that sometimes almost feels like a curse. And I got to
yeah.
tell God, like, why would you tell me that? Like, why would you give me this idea, knowing that I don't have the tools for this yet, or know how this is going to happen. Like I said, there's ideas that I have written down for different things, um, that again might not be for the next 10, 15 to 20 years.
Yeah.
But it comes so easy to me, and I can see it so clearly that, at times it becomes frustrating, it's a very easy, thing for me to do.
I wish my co-host could have been on this one with his name is Kenny.
Mm.
The reason I say that is he's an author, he's an
Oh,
artist. Like
wow.
we're definitely gonna have to have you on because like
Yeah, yeah.
he like when I hear you talk and this man is like like I think he's also master at storytelling.
Oh, wow.
Um, but he and again he has a book that he wrote. Read the books. One of my favorite books. It's Marcus Aurelius has the book Meditations.
Yeah.
Right next to it is what I put my friend's book. Like right next to it. It's
Oh,
it's
wow.
similar in that way. But he comes at it from more from like a philosophical perspective. But
Okay.
when you look at Jesus, right, and you notice just how he taught a lot of things to storytelling.
So it's
Um,
right.
I'm in the business world, and I'm in the insurance industry. And
Mm.
uh, when it comes to sales, one of the things they talk about often is learn how to tell stories. Right? It's
Right.
this person over here is bad, has bad insurance. Tell the story of somebody that experienced bad insurance and what that does
Right.
to them. And dude, your skill sets, if you wanted to, you could go through any sales industry and they would hire you without hesitation. You know what I mean? Like that, the art of being able to tell stories as a way of moving people. And the fact
Yeah.
that you recognize that your gifting is that of taking nothing and turn it into something,
Right.
something our creator did, right? Turns nothing into something. And for you to be able to have that level of insight, to be able to, I often tell people when I talk to people and they'll say, how do you view people? When I talk to somebody, what I care about is there's something about you as an individual that God says is worth dying for. So
Right.
what I want to do is I want to get to know that individual. Like, what
Right.
is it
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
person? You know what I mean? Like, regardless
Right.
of what your past is or anything like that, there's something about you that
Right.
someone says worth dying for, and I want to know what that is. And as I'm listening to you talk, it's like, again, I sometimes people kind of, they'll start saying all these things about, look at all great things you are, and you're like, you don't even know, right? So it's kind of
Right.
hard to like. But what I would say is, man, the fact that your kids want to pursue the same things like you're pursuing, that they're in it, like that's a very healthy thing. Like your
Yeah.
family is with, to see you talk about your wife, right, and the fact that she was with you from day one, that she was able to, the thing that people accepted you for, right, and when that thing
Right.
was taken away and they left, for her to look at you and say, I don't care about that things as much as I care about who you are beneath that.
Right.
Like that's a gift for you to be able to have um, the different industries that you've been able to tap into, right? You talk about perseverance. You had a lot of opportunities to
Yeah. 100%.
call it quits and for you to kind of pursue it. So and then when I heard you say that line of, I get to take nothing and turn it into something, I think that's at that moment I'm like, okay, I can see the divinity
Mm.
within this individual. I think it's brilliant, man. Like this has been
Right.
an absolute like. What I mean, like we're gonna have to do another one. We're gonna have to do another one because I think
Yeah.
Kenny
Definitely.
gonna want to meet somebody like you. Is there any message you want to say to anybody that's listening? Any last minute thoughts that you have?
Mm. Uh, I mean, it's something that I always love to stand on. Um, is people. I think a lot of people, are in this journey of finding purpose, and not thinking that they're built for something bigger. And it's unfortunate, that people think they're only meant for such things that are small. But if they only knew, uh, what was out there for them, they would change their mind. Somebody said a quote once that they said, the most, what was it? The richest place in the world is the graveyard, because that's where a lot of ideas, inventions,
Mhm.
and all these things go to die because people will never do them. Um, you know, and you think about it, you're like, man, that's true, So I mean, I would tell anybody, lean into that God given purpose, and actually really, don't just talk about it, actually find what your purpose is. Cause like you said, there's something that you were worth dying for. There is something in you that only you can bring to the rest of the world. And until you do, it's a disservice to the rest of the world. So, bring what you got to the world, and share that joy with the world. Um, don't be selfish.
Yeah. Well said, man. Well said. Well said. As you know, the next speaker would love for you to be able to connect us with. So, I look forward to that, man.
Yeah.
And Andre, just absolute pleasure. I'm glad I got
Oh,
your
thank
number because I'm gonna hit you up, and then I'm gonna try to post some of those. I know you said you had some teasers and stuff like that out there. I'm gonna try to post
Yeah.
those on my social
Yeah, I'll
media
shoot
as
you.
well. But
I'll shoot you like I said, I got my YouTube page, and all that stuff. All that, yeah, it's all on there. So
man, thank you so much. Thank you.
no, I appreciate you, man.